In this video, we're going to look at if functions. In this first example, we'll look at the most basic if statement. I've listed the if statement as it would be entered into the cell, and here we have the actual formula evaluating. So I'm going to wipe these formulas here, and you're going to watch me type them in, and I'll describe them as we go. So in this instance, we're just going to compare the values in column A, compare them to the corresponding values in column B. So we just want to find out whether the value in column A matches the value in column B. A very straightforward function. So we type in equals if and open bracket, and we say, well, if the value in A2 equals B2, comma, and close bracket, and press return. And it returns false, simply because the value in A2 of 1 does not equal the value in B2 of 6. Now I'm just going to use a fill handle to fill the formulas down, and the second formula which also returns false because 8 does not equal 4. The third value formula returns blank because the value in A does match the value in column B. False again because 4 does not equal 8, but it's blank again because 9 in column A in cell A6 matches 9 in cell B6. That is the if statement at its most basic. Let's have a look at the same scenario with a slightly amended if statement. Here you can actually see the if statement once again printed out, and here is the if statement evaluated. Now I'm going to delete the if statements and I'm going to type them in. So the formula is much the same as before. It's equals if open bracket A2 equals B2 comma 1 comma 0 and close bracket. So the if statement says, well, if the value in A2 equals the value in B2, return 1, otherwise, or else, return 0. So I'm going to press return. So it returns 0 because the two values do not equal each other. Again, it returns 0 because the two values don't match each other. And this time it returns 1 because 3 does equal 3. And fill down, and there we go. This if statement, I believe, is slightly more useful than the previous if statement, because at the very least we can count up the number of ones to give us an accurate picture of how many of the values are equal to each other. Now let's look at a slightly more complicated if statement, and this is a nested if statement, which simply means that one if statement is nested inside another if statement. This is the formula here I've listed in column B, and at first glances it looks quite complicated and possibly a little bit off-putting. But we'll see in a minute as I build it up that it's actually not that bad. And once you get your head around it, it becomes an extremely useful formula. The scenario we're trying to look at is if a due date is passed, we want to return an RAG or RAG status of red. If the due date is more than a month ahead, we want to return a status of green. And if the due date is within 30 days but hasn't yet passed, we want to return a RAG status of amber. For the purposes of this video, today's date is the 12th of March 2014, and the other thing to point out is I'm using European style dates. So it's day, month, year. Okay, so let's build our RAG status. So the first one, just the first if statement. So if this value is less than today's date, B6, then, so the date is passed, in other words, we want to display the word red, R-E-D. And because we're returning text, it must be contained in quotation marks. But if A2 isn't less than B6, so it isn't less than today's date, then we want to return one of two other values, green or amber. So therefore, we have a comma for the else, but in place of the else value, we put in another if statement. So if A2 is greater than B6 plus 30. So all I'm doing there is taking the date in cell B6 and adding 30 to it, which is just adding 30 days to the value in B6. So we're saying if the date A2 is greater than today's date plus 30 days, then return green, the word green. And again, it's in quotation marks, comma, and then this is the last value, amber, close quotation marks, close brackets, and close brackets. And what this means is if the value in cell A2 is less than the value in cell B6, return the word red. If it's not, then ask another question. If the value in A2 is greater than the value in B6 plus 30 days, return the word green. Otherwise, return the word amber. So the only scenario that will return the word amber is if the date is greater than today but less than today plus 30 days. I press return and this value will return red. Now we have to amend our formula slightly before I fill down, and how I have to amend it is that the today's date reference is in a single cell. So if I fill down, the reference to B6 will move to B7 and to B8 because of relative referencing, but I want to fix it to this date here. So on F6 I have to press F4 on the keyboard, which puts a $sign before the B and a $sign before the 6, and just as I do it here as well, F4, or if you're on a Mac, it's function F4, $B, $6. I don't have to fix it to the A2 because A2 is here and I want, as I fill down, to reference A3 and just fill down again to reference A4. So I want to keep that relative referencing. Press return, red, that's amber, and that's green. Moving on from the if statement, let's have a quick look at and or. We have 4 values here, 2, 4, 6, 8. If we use the and statement can only return either true or false. For it to return true, each condition must be true. For it to return false, only one condition has to be false for it to return false. So what does that mean? If I type in equals A and D, open bracket, and I say A2 equals 2, which is clearly true, and A3 equals 4, which is also true, comma, A4 equals 6, which again is true, and close bracket, each of those conditions are true, so this whole formula should return true, and it does. Let's try that again, slightly amended. Equals and, open bracket, A2 equals 2, A3 equals 4, comma, A4 equals 6, comma, A5 equals 1, comma, close bracket. The first 3 conditions are all true, but A5 does not equal 1, it equals 8. So this formula will return false. It returns false because only one of the conditions, not all of the conditions are true. Or is different, or just requires one of the conditions to be true for it to return true. It will only return false if all of the conditions are false. So let's have a look at that. So equals or, A2 equals 2, which is true, comma, A3 equals 3, which is not true, comma, A4 equals 4, which again is not true, it's equal to 6, and A5 equal to 5, which is not true. But this formula will return true because only one of the conditions has to be true, and A2 equals 2 is true. So the formula returns true. To return false, all the conditions have to be false. So or, open bracket, A2 equals 1, comma, A3 equals 3, comma, A4 equals 4, comma, A5 equals 5, close bracket. All of the conditions in this formula are false, so therefore it will return false. Now let's have a look at CountIf. We have a list of marital statuses on column A, plus as well we have some missing statuses. So we've set up 3 scenarios, one where we count the number of singles, one where we count the number of marrieds, and one where we count the ones marital status not recorded. So the formula is, now first of all, the last cell is A161. So that will be our range. So our range will be A2 to A161. So equals CountIf, open bracket, A2 colon A161, comma, open quotes, S, close quotes, and it's not case sensitive, close bracket. This will count all the instances of S between cell A2 and cell A161, and there are 66. Similarly for married equals CountIf, open bracket, A2 colon A161, comma, M, comma, close bracket. And in this instance, I don't need to put the relative cell, the absolute cell referencing, because I'm not copying this formula either down or across. So this is looking for the number of instances of M, and there are 48 M's in that list. And then finally to count the not recorded, or in other words count all the blanks, was CountIf, A2 colon A161, comma, and it's open quotes, space, open quotes, close bracket, press return, and there are 25 blanks. Here are a few scenarios where you can also use CountIf. So we have an array of formulas here, 9 in all, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, minus 7, 8, and 9. So there are a mixture of numbers, negative numbers, text, and 1 blank. Here are the individual formulas. Here's what we're looking for, and here's the result. so I'll just wipe the results and let's have a go at this. So counting all non-blanks, so it's equals CountIf A2 colon A10, comma, and the criteria is in quotes, less than, greater than, quotes, close bracket, press return. All non-blanks, and there are 8. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So count all text equals CountIf A2 colon A10, comma, quotation marks, asterisk, quotation mark, close bracket, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Count all blanks equals CountIf A2 colon A10, comma, quotation mark, no space between, close bracket, and there's 1, there's the 1 space, or 1 blank. Count all numbers. Now this is not CountIf, this is count, so equals count, open, A2 colon A10, and returns 5. So count all numbers was 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And finally, count all non-text and numbers equals CountIf A2 colon A10, comma, quotation marks, less than, greater than, and asterisk, close quotes, close bracket, and it's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we look at a slightly different function, CountIfs or CountIfs. This counts values based on 2 or more criteria. CountIf can only count on one, based on one criteria. So here we have marital statuses again, and we also have gender introduced. So this time we're going to count the number of married and the number of females. So it's the number of married females as opposed to the number of marrieds plus the number of married females. It's the number of married females. So it's CountIfs, open bracket, A2 colon A161, and look for the instances of M's there, and then look to the other range, which is B2 colon B161, and look for the instances of F's. Again, it's not case sensitive, close bracket, press return, and there are 29 married females in these lists. SumIf will return a sum up value based on one criteria. So in this instance, we're going to look for the total executive salary role. So there should be add up 4 salaries. So it's equals SumIf A2 colon A17, comma, quotation mark, exec, close quote. So find the instances of exec in the cell A2 to A, in the range A2 to A17, and sum up corresponding values in the range C2 to C17, close bracket, and we get 101.2 million. And finally, a variation on that is the SumIfs or SumIfs. So this will sum up based on 2 criteria. So in this instance, we're looking for executives, department executives who are in the region north. It's equals SumIfs, and this time you select the array to be summed, and then we look for the criteria. So criteria 1 is the departments, comma, quotes, exec, it's not case sensitive, and then the second criteria, the range, comma, and the name pulled from that range. So 770,000. So there's this executive here and these executives here to be included. Thank you for watching.